All right, so this is an interview to myself, and basically, I'm going to be asking my girl side exactly because I do have a guy's side. Yes, I do. That's my tomboy side. I'm going to be asking my girl side some questions and interviewing them on some pertinent questions I feel from the trans community. Um, Now, you held in being transgender for over 30 years. What is it that made you finally come out and just out to the world and to be yourself?
Well, I basically kind of came out to the world because I I got to a point where I just couldn't handle um, doing doing this lie anymore. It's hard to explain, but I also had a girlfriend who I had shared many of my secrets to, and I felt very safe telling her. The thing was that when I first came out to her, I didn't realize that it would open up the floodgates of emotions. And when I did that, there was like no going back. And I actually struggled for a while trying to stay a man. I decided and I told her, even though I legitimately feel like a girl, that I was going to stay a man and that I was going to continue living as a man and just realize that I'm a woman. So I actually tried those shoes on for some time. But as you know, I had already done it since I was 3 years old. So I had already done it for 30 years, and it wasn't helping that I was now out of the closet with one person, and my dysphoria started to increase. It started to get much worse. So I basically came out because it was necessity, and I needed to start making some changes so that I could get rid of the suicidal feelings and the feelings of um, just dysphoria.
What were your initial emotions after coming out to your family?
My initial emotions were kind of mixed. I had a certain amount of excitement over um, over it because I was able to finally come out and be myself a little bit more. And but I really struggled with a few things, and that was people's reactions. And so my initial emotions were very strong in both directions depending on what day you found me on. But there was days where my dysphoria was so bad, I just wasn't able to handle it. And um, but my very first emotions that I felt um, was when I came out to my girlfriend, was that I literally felt like I was walking on clouds because I had finally said the words um, that I had never said to anybody else. So it was definitely one of these things that I was so glad to finally get off of my chest.
Can you give a description of what dysphoria feels like to you and what you experience from it?
Well, dysphoria is a lot of things to me. One of the things it causes me is extreme anxiety. A lot of times I feel like I'm literally crawling out of my skin. I start having problems breathing. I begin to hyperventilate. I begin to panic. So it's basically like a panic attack. And a lot of times when I'm around other women or girls and I realize I'm not being seen as one of the girls, I get very depressed and very angry because I really feel like I should be one of them. And for a long time, my dysphoria, I thought it was because I wanted to be with every woman I saw, whether they were thin or fat, or I just thought every woman needed to be with me. And it's hard to describe, but I was always confused about that because I knew that I really only needed one person with me to be happy and find a sense of peace and happiness and belonging, um, as far as a relationship. But it was confusing that I felt like I needed to be with every girl, but it was confusing because, well, in the reality, it's that I basically wanted to be every woman. I wanted to have their parts and their role in society and be able to interact with the world in the way that I really felt that they were. I felt like that should be mine to have, and I just didn't quite understand it because I hadn't put a name yet to what it was that I was suffering from.
Was the fallout of telling people who you really are and how you have always felt that as bad as you imagined? Because I can imagine that your mind would kind of run wild with that.
Well, initially there was some fallout telling people who I was. At first I had some good reactions, but then, I told, like my father, and that reaction wasn't very good. But it was one of these things where I needed to do it, so no matter what happened, I was ready to come out to the world finally, and it didn't matter what reaction I received. But there wasn't as much fallout as I really thought there would be at first, and it's hard to describe. I pretty much just knew that, um, there was going to be people out there who did love me for who I was, and I just kind of went with those feelings and tried to stay strong. But I was surprised how many people were really supportive. In fact, I found way more supportive people than I did people who were against it. So I'm glad I didn't let my fears stop me, basically.
What is the main difference in your quality of life since you've began transition?
Well, my quality of life has gone up, but it's mainly because my dysphoria and anxiety has gone down. But don't I mean, you have to understand that although I have set down one burden, I'm also picking up a whole new one. Like, I quite literally am, it's hard to describe, like, instead of holding something in, now I have to deal with people's reactions to me and trying to transition and trying to go through all the difficulties that are life as a transgender or transsexual person. So yes, I did put down the burden of, finally letting go of, um, you know, holding this in and being in the closet. But I did pick up a lot of other. But I do have a lot more energy and ability to be happy. I am not expending energy towards hiding who I am anymore, which I was really doing for a long time, and it was really counterproductive, and it sucked a lot of the life out of me. And now it's fun and great to be able to relax and finally be myself, and finally just let the feminine side of me kind of just flow out, which I never was able to experience very well before.
Do you think that you'll eventually go through SRS surgery, maybe some facial surgeries to become more at peace with yourself?
Well, I mean, yeah, I want to go through facial feminization surgery, but problem with that is a lots of money to do so, and I do want to go through sexual reassignment surgery, and if I have to do breast implants, but um, it's like I said, there's a lot of money involved. I also am scared of going through those surgeries anyways, like the idea of being put under so that I can go through the surgeries is a difficult one for me, for sure. But yes, I would go through with the surgeries all the way because that's who I am. And at this point, I've lived my life trying to be a guy for a long enough time to know it's not that good for me and I need a change. So I pretty much am ready to I'm ready to move on and start living my life where my body finally matches who I am and just feeling more comfortable with myself. So yeah, I would go through with the rest of the surgeries. Yes, I would.
All right, what did it take to achieve the feminine voice that you are now using? What did you have to go through to actually achieve that voice?
Well, I ended up having to do like a lot of like voice practicing, and what I did was I listened to voice recordings of myself, and I'm still working on it. I feel like that's the one thing that I'll be working on most of all, because my voice, although kind of is more feminine, um, I pretty much feel like I could definitely be doing better and improving on what it is that I'm doing to make my voice feminine, but I work on my voice every day. I don't let a day pass. I try to do voice work in public settings. I try to do it around people, and I listen to women all the time, and basically listen to how they put their sentences together and how it is that they present themselves, because um, really that's who I want to be seen as. Anyways, I want to be seen as just a regular woman. So obviously I need to um, work on my voice more, but I've done a lot of voice practicing. Have I been coached by anybody? No, not really, but I, you know, I do a lot of voice practicing and listening back to recordings of myself.
Do you have any advice for trans people's families if they're watching this? Do you have any advice you would like, in your experience, to share with them?
Well, if I really did have any kind of like advice for trans families, it's that this isn't going to go away. So make sure you're there for your child, for your brother or your sister, whoever it is that is suffering with this, and try to be understanding, because this is going to be a lifelong thing. There is no cure to it. So other than transition, anyways. And the idea here is to embrace them, because if they're coming out and telling you this, that's because this is really who they are. And the idea is to love the people around you and your family, and not to have some conditional terms to that love. So do some studying on it, show a vested interest in them, and really talk to them and ask what their feelings are, and see what they've gone through over all the years, so that you can better key in on their needs now, and just realize that they are the same person you've always known. They just need to change just a few things about themselves. So that's what I would suggest to any people or family of trans, like you were saying.
What words of advice would you share with any transgender girls that who are struggling and maybe going through some difficulties, pre-transition, middle transition, or wherever they may be?
Well, any words of advice I guess I could give, somebody like myself, transgender guys or girls, I would tell them to really just be yourself. It's time to be kind to yourself. It's time to talk friendly towards yourself and not be angry with your body, and give it time to adjust and change by going through this process. Um, Make sure that you give yourself all the chances in the world, because you deserve it. And I would say that if anything, my advice to you is also find a good, loving support group that you can surround yourself with, and make sure that you stay away from dangerous situations that can hurt your psyche, around people who could potentially be mean. Obviously, I'm not saying stay away from public settings, but definitely be careful, and make sure, the main thing I can't stress enough is to love yourself for who you are, because you are amazing, and you are special, and you are unique, and there is nothing wrong with who you are. It is a beautiful thing, and to hang in there, because things can change for you. No matter where you are in life, you can change things, and things will improve. So that would be my advice.
I just want to say thank you for doing the interview. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for the interview, and I appreciate um, being able to, say what I've said, and I hope that this helps somebody else.